Yes, please go ahead, Stefan.
Yes. Hi. Yeah. Thank you first of all, Jan Erik, for asking the question because it shows that you're implementing.
Yeah,
It,
I ask them from our developers, so it
yes.
just goes through me.
Exactly. And so just to reiterate to anybody listening to this after Thursday, 3rd of August, 2023, the question was how to connect the voxel data to the voxel grid geometrical representation. And of course, my first answer was corrected by Sergey, which I'm very grateful. So my first answer was just linking the grid, the geometric representation to a product, which is a concept well established within IFC through the means of IFC shape representation and IFC. What is it? Sergey, help me here.
Sorry.
Shape representation. IFC shape representation and
product definition shape.
Product definition shape. Thank you. Yeah, those two. However, of course, the voxel representation and the voxel data are usually linked to some other semantically rich object like IFC geo model. So it's not that there should be a connection between the voxel data as a product and the voxel grid as a geometric representation item directly, but through the means of an additional relationship. So if, for example, the IFC geo model being a representation of the terrain in a voluminous state, the IFC geo model would like to represent itself by the means of the voxels. So to attach the geometry, you would attach the IFC voxel grid through IFC product definition shape and IFC shape representation, as it is done with any other product. However, to also attach the voxel data, so the real, the logical or the reals or the integer values that each voxel has, one would use the IFC rel assigns to product between the IFC geo model and the IFC voxel data. So the sketch that Sergey sent, that was an idea at that time, but I believe at a later stage it was decided to not introduce another relationship, but to reuse an existing one. So Sergey, correct me here if I've missed anything.
That was exactly the simplification we did. We just reused an existing relationship, so we didn't introduce any new entity. But the general notion, like Stefan explained, you just have two objects that are navigable in an IFC file, meaning that they are children of IFC root. One is the actual objects, something like terrain or something, and the other one is the data that is attached to this model via rel assigns to product. The thing that connects that connects them on the resource level, however, is the geometric representation, which is the voxel grid. And how data is connected to the voxel grid is just by the notion of index matching. So similar to how tessellated face set, tessellated, or let's say in general, the tessellated stuff in IFC gets colors assigned, or what else? Textures. It also does it by matching the indices. I can show you a sketch of that in the documentation, how this is supposed to work. And the same way we are matching I mean, in the same manner we are matching the data to voxel instances. So let's say
do you support several data sets to the same voxel grid?
Sure. I mean, data sets can be externally linked. If you mean an external reference, but
or if with the same relationship as you showed on the sketch there that you sent us.
well, yeah, certainly. Yeah. In one IFC file, you could link many voxel data to the same one, and in principle, it works like that. So if you imagine instead of a triangulated facet on this point, where it has a lists of 3 of the coordinate indices that point to the Cartesian point list. So these already match by index. So let's say if you have a triangulated facet, the coordinate indices of the coordinate list compile the triangles. So let's say 165 means 1 which one is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 5, right? This is the first triangle that's compiled from these points.
Mm.
And the same way, if you just strike through triangulated facet and say voxel grid on this point, the same way you would have the voxel data indices pointing back to the voxel grid here to assign the values to the voxel data entity. We have to. I mean, we sort of have this sketched in the image I sent you, which I have to find still in my. Didn't I send this week?
Yes.
I did,
Oh.
didn't I?
Yes.
Yes, you did.
Can't find it. Which is in any case, let me open the email. Email here. So this is now the oops, sorry, clicking all around here. So this is the same logic in principle. It's just that this rel assigns values to grid is something that we skipped because rel assigns to product seemed to fit the narrative that we put together. And now looking at voxel data, we pretty much just have the values as IFC integers or IFC reals or IFC vectors in principle. And this list being ordered again just matches by index to back to the voxels list in voxel grid. The only thing that we don't have on this side is that voxel data uses the same voxel grid as a geometric representation so that you can navigate directly from voxel data to the voxel grid.
Yes, I think this was clear for us. So we try to implement this week. At least the developer, he jumped to another issue while we waited for information. But when he's finished that one, he will start on this one again. So that will happen today, I guess. So then we will have an example file within a week or so.
I'm very happy if you can provide an example file. So while Sergey was explaining, I was drawing the sketch, and this is basically what we were saying. So if you have, for example, an IFC geomodel that you would like to represent by voxels, then you would need a rel assigns to product to the right to the IFC voxel data that is then being one of the instances, for example, logical voxel data, label voxel data, real voxel data, or whichever it is. And the geomodel itself would have a voxel grid assigned through this product definition shape representation. And the only thing, what Sergey has been pointing, out is that this voxel data and voxel grid are matching by indices. So the same index within the voxel data corresponds to the same index within the voxel grid. The only thing that I did not understand right now, Sergey, at the end is, so the voxel data itself should also point to the same voxel grid.
Yeah, it has the same geometric representation.
It should, right? Okay, yeah, that's something I wasn't sure, but I would definitely agree to that.
So you will suggest a new relationship directly between the data and the grid?
Not that we're going to suggest it. It exists.
Yeah,
we'll reuse what's possible.
Exists, yes. Exactly.
So can you just rephrase, please, Stefan? I didn't get either what you were saying, the last part.
Let me draw it, and then it might be clear.
Yes.
We have this diagram somewhere published already, because we showed it already. I just can't remember where we showed it. I think it's in our UML report, as a matter of fact.
Might be, but this is what we've just now also said. So voxel data itself is also a product, so it can also have a representation, and this one should point to the same voxel grid, so that you can navigate when reading voxel data. You can immediately know, which voxel grid it assigns to, but still, this matching by indices is true.
Yeah.
Okay, so the two relations needs to exist from voxel data to real science product and product simplification.
So what we usually like to say is that this part is the so-called semantic part, and this part is the geometric part.
Okay.
That's what I explained to the developers also, because they thought they should have the data in the grid itself. So then I explained that we wanted to separate the data from the geometry.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah.
This is one of the premises of IFC, basically.
Yeah.
Geometry is a resource. Geometry is a resource that is used, and everything else is attached to resources through rooted objects. That's why we rooted voxel data. So voxel data is basically an IFC product also.
So you shouldn't, as we discussed before, we shouldn't use that resource anymore after yesterday then. Or else we will use too much resources than the Earth can produce.
I think we're at the stage, that these resources cannot be used anymore. But it's your fault, Janne. You brought it up.
Yeah, we try too many times before we succeed, so then we use up all the resources, geometry resources. Yes.
Good. So that clarifies that one point. Had you other questions, like that your developers have raised?
Not yet, but when we submit this sooner or later, then the checker will be checking this then.
Probably not yet, because we don't have the documentation and concept template part.
Yes. This is something that is a work in progress, that the voxelated voxel grid, for example, that there we are trying to put in a check that the length of the voxel data and the length of the voxel grid should be the same size, should be the same number. So we're trying to introduce such sanity checks in the model itself. But I think there's a pull request already on that, right, Sergey?
Yep, we do have a pull request on that. but we have some discussions with Thomas Kreinen, not yet building smart, but Thomas Kreinen about whether or not we should be querying such things.
Is that a rule, or is that a part of a usage of the template in question?
It's actually a rule in the schema at the moment,
Okay.
but it's not merged because the discussion is ongoing. We need some input from SCTE, I guess, at some point, because Leon tells us that
For example,
SCTE
yes.
will be the one deciding.
But
is
that preventing? Because my understanding was that we had the check already, maybe without this one check, but
Yeah, so this will that's the answer to Jan Erik's question. So checker will not check that exactly this kind of graph is present.
okay.
Right. So we'll not check that whatever is. So if GeoModel is being connected to a voxel data, for example, that both of them point to the same voxel grid representation. This is, for example, not in the checker because it's not even been, it hasn't been agreed upon yet between us, the technical developers, so to say.
Okay.
You have to be fast and to submit this
Yes.
to Git, so we get it through the checker.
You know the trick now.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
So-
we could generate the
No.
toolkit for this. It's not a problem. It's just not going to be approved because with the pull request system we can just take the pull request that deals with this and generate from that branch. We can generate the toolkit from that branch, and from the new toolkit we can just generate the new checker. But
but
is it correct then if it's not agreed? It's that's sort of the politics are kind of the part that's making it slower, let's say.
But on this one particular question, whether this check should be injected or not, frankly, the check itself doesn't look like too complicated.
Well,
That's rather simple.
It is quite complicated. I have
Not
to
to implement,
but
say, from its principle.
Exactly, yeah, exactly, yeah. In that case,
So why don't
I
we
withdraw
simply go?
my statement.
Okay, well, so why don't we go ahead and just? I mean, the checker is our own stuff. We can do what we want.
Well, the checker is based on the schema, right? And all of the
and
rules,
you want to have that on the schema. Okay, well,
all of the rules are on the schema, exactly. And
but we can propose this because this is anyway. This is an addition. So this is our own proposition. So that's part of the proposition. Period.
It is a proposal, but I mean, sure, yeah. We could merge, I guess, because our arguments here weren't really answered after we. I can show you actually.
I believe Michel is right here. Yeah, let's merge and let's have it done. So what I just before you take over the screen, Sergey, what I have drawn, these green boxes. This is the body voxel data concept template that has already been added. So for example, this will be checked. This can be checked, that this part of the graph exists, so to say. Right, so we are checking 2/3 of what's currently shown on the graph.
Okay, well, good. Then let's go for it and merge and have to check it to do this. Period.
And also the USBIM, they said they would support voxels. So that's exciting because then we can send voxel files to them and see how it looks in USBIM. Maybe before the summit at Lillestrøm.
That'd be great. We just now need to get our ESRI friends to do the same.
For example, yeah. So Jan Erik, if you're going to be in contact, you can also CC us and we could jump on if there's any technical difficulties there.
Yeah, Michelangelo just mentioned this in an email before the summer vacation. So
great.
As soon as we have something, I will contact him back and ask what is the situation.
please do so. Good. So if we are good on this one point, and we leave to the remaining question. Jannik, I just wanted to ask you, as for the summit in Norway, have you had the time to see how we could organize this on-site visit?
No, but if you're interested, I can do that.
In which case, I think that would be nice. In which case, could that be organized like on the Wednesday evening?
Yeah, I guess so.
Because the presentation by yourselves and the other software vendors would be on during this IfcTunnel session that is on Wednesday the 20th, 3 p.m.
Yeah, I will for sure. I can contact Skanska. They are building tunnels around Oslo, in the Oslo area now. They have several large projects. So.
And once you believe that this is doable, just let me know so that I'll A, circulate the info, and B, ask who would be interested in visiting. Therefore, I don't know how far that is, but we might be willing to organize a minibus or something.
Yeah, or maybe if we can do it, for instance, at Høvik, or if we do it further up at on the outside of Sandvika, we maybe need some transport. But at Høvik here, it's a train from Lillestrøm to here, so that's easy peasy.
Better.
And also maybe we can find some even closer tunnels. But I think this is probably the closest, so that is in production now. That should be doable, and maybe 20 persons or so.
Something like that, I would assume. Yeah. But who knows? So we just need to check. So therefore, I want to ask a question.
Yeah, maybe we can.
And Lee, you confirmed you're interested in presenting as well. I mean, through the a little video.
Yeah. I just have to see how Adam's going.
Yes, of course. But this is work in progress. So
yeah.
No worries. Good. Okay. Anything else that we would like to bring to Jannik and Lee's attention? Nope. Okay. Lee, any other question?
No, I'm right.
No
doubt Adam might have some, but we'll catch up with him next time.
Yep, of course.
No question. No questions right now.
Very good.
But as you know, Artemis has been in contact with Jonas, and they have discussed. But I don't know the details about this because I will have a meet. I was supposed to have a meeting later today with Artemis, but we extended it to tomorrow. So
what they discussed was what kind of geometries are typically applicable for the different type of subsoil configuration.
Yeah, because the plan is to have these ground investigation boreholes. That is the key thing for GeoSuite and this voxel system, the voxel grid. That she will focus on these two things. That's what I said to her, but maybe she has changed a little bit her opinion after talking with Jonas. So we'll see. Maybe she'll join this afternoon session today. I will not.
Yes, indeed. Have you been in contact with our Tech Lab friends?
Not regarding this. Do you want me to contact them regarding the summit at Lillestrøm?
Yes.
Yeah, I can do that because we discussed some was it survey points or something that we discussed here the other day, but not IFC 4.4.
I think would be nice.
Yeah.
I will be rechasing people anyway, but it'd be good if you could.
I will do that.
Good. So I think with that, we can probably adjourn this one call. And I will not be speaking with you over the coming weeks, to my displeasure, but Stefan will be, and Sergey will be there. So the ones who provide value to the discussion will be active and will be running those calls. So all over August. Good. With that, gentlemen, I think I can adjourn and wish you good day, good evening, Lee, and
Thank you.
speak to you very soon.
Have a nice holiday then.
Thank
Even
you.
though not
Yeah.
in Norway.
Even though not in Norway, not at this time. September.
Okay. Yes,
Cheers.
September.
Good.
Talk to everyone talk to everybody next week except Michelle. Enjoy it.
Exactly.
Okay.
You take care.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye.
Okay, so let's get started then. There were discussions ongoing this morning, interesting discussions that we might want to share with you both. And then maybe Artemis, we can go with the questions and the exchanges you have had with Jonas that can benefit the team, of course. But what we discussed this morning would benefit both of you. So, Stefan or Sergey, do you mind just driving this talk? One was related to how to link properly a voxel grid and its associated data.
Let me pull up the sketch. I even saved the sketch so I can share it with everyone here. So the question came from Jan Erik from Trimble about how to connect voxel data to voxel representation. There are two different classes within IFC. And yeah, the sketch is now pretty loaded with colors and everything. But if we first focus on the black part of the sketch, the question primarily is, for example, if one has an IFC geo model that is seen on the left top, and one would say that this geo model is represented in a voxel type representation, then this geo model through product definition shape, so going downwards through product definition shape representation, would have an IFC voxel grid attached to it as its geometric representation. This is this green rectangle, the body voxel data concept template being used on the IFC geo model. However, this is only the voxel representation, only the geometry. And if one wants to also assign some data to each individual voxel, one would use something of sort of IFC voxel data that is seen on the right-hand side. That is the superclass of all the subclasses, so that IFC logical voxel data, IFC real voxel data, IFC label voxel data. There are many others, or a few others. Let's put it this way. I think it should be like 6 or 7. And this IFC voxel data holds
Not that
the
many,
data.
Stefan. Not
that many even. Okay.
No.
A handful then. But so this IFC voxel data itself should also reference the same voxel grid by means of the same concept template, so the same body voxel data concept template. So again, to be able, so if one only looks at voxel data, that it still can, see what kind of representation it is, and the data and the grid are matching by indices. So the same index within the voxel data has the corresponding pair is the same index within the voxel grid, because they both are, I think, one-dimensional array, modeled as a one-dimensional array that is basically, you have first the x's, then the y's, then the z's listed in one-dimensional thing. And how to connect the IFC geo model with the voxel data? You see that that's the top line there. You use the IFC rel assigns to product relationship. And we are still working on a, let's say, green rectangle around these 3 entities. So the concept template to do that is still missing. But I mean, missing from documentation. It's a work in progress. We are aware that it is missing. And with that, you have the connection to the geometry from both entities, but also you have a connection on the semantic part of things, as denoted by the red line that divides the whole sketch in 2 parts. Sergey, have I missed anything?
I don't think so. I think it's you covered everything.
So that's a summary of what we discussed in the morning. And yeah, this sketch, I'm not sure, perhaps we should make it a bit nicer. This is, of course, my beloved tool, Paint. We could make it nicer, of course. Paint's the best, yes. And put it into this documentation, perhaps even.
Yeah, so
Probably would make sense to have this in the documentation as a separate, sorry for interrupting, but I think we should actually do something like this in the documentation the same way that the sketch is done for for tessellated facets.
For example, yes.
Yeah, and the colors. I think that's quite nice if it's explained like that. Sorry for interrupting again.
Okay.
So Artemis, you were saying?
No, that I mean, right now we are still waiting from your side to implement that. So for us to continue working, right? Or
so you can already implement this part. This is what we envision is the correct way of doing it. We don't yet have a mechanism enforcing this.
Okay.
But this is what you should. This is what you should do.
Okay.
By enforcing, you mean by enforcing through the checker?
Yes.
Or through the, yeah, right. And Artemis, we understood from Jan-Erik, you have a one or two, I don't know, developers that work for you on this subject?
Yes.
Okay.
They're the two same people that also Jan-Erik is collaborating with.
Okay. Okay.
So let's say for me and Jan-Erik and the two other developers, we work really close. So I usually send something to Jan-Erik, he sends back to me to put the geo stuff. I send it back to him, and we get some extra
good
from other developers. So it's not a separate group. We are working.
Okay.
Together.
Okay. So you can pressure the same developer coming from two ends.
Exactly. Exactly.
Poor guy, but no, good. The better. Okay.
Yes.
So that clarifies for you. That's clear for you now. Okay. Good.
It's very clear, and I also got really good input from Jonas file on Tuesday. So we went through the schema and figure out where everything belongs from our part, from the software. So everything is very clear. So now the most intriguing part is to implement it and deliver for the sprint. So.
Good. Okay. And what else? Yes, Jan-Erik was mentioning the fact that you're being working quite closely as well with the with Michelangelo from Aka software, and so what things you produce, you'll be checking in the import part within his Beam platform.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
And I was thinking, Michael, I was thinking that the same we could try to help you with as well, so that when Artemis and Jan-Erik have produced stuff, that you could provide these, as examples to your developers, so that they can have maybe a more practical feeling of what it is that they need their software to digest.
Yeah, we'd really appreciate that. I think from my end, so yes, 2 thumbs up on that. From my end, many thanks, Stefan and Sergey is always kind of walking me through the the more technical stuff. One item that I remember that we talked about maybe back in June was the way that so on the Esri side of things, in our big flagship software package ArcGIS Pro, we focus on consuming IFC. And so one of the items that is on our mind as we're looking at down the road being able to consume the voxel entities from IFC is that we use the net CDF file format, and yeah, I'm seeing Stefan. You're like, I don't. I think maybe it was with maybe Sergey that I had a discussion.
Yeah,
as part of
gave reference
to
that. Yes.
Yeah, and I didn't know if I don't have enough technical depth to know if the way that this is set up is going to be present any roadblocks. At the level of technical depth I do have, I don't see any. I don't see any issues there. We had talked about, I provided you folks with some sizes for the number of voxel cells in each dimension, that we had seen, been able to get good use out of, like in our software. But I didn't know. Sorry, to get back to the question, I guess is there any? Is the idea right now, as it stands, is that the entire description of the voxel, and what I really mean is the right arm of the excellent paint diagram, truly, Stefan, is that right arm of that, like the entire set of the voxel data is going to be housed, within an IFC file, where there's not going to be any sort of net CDF or HDS5, I think it was, or anything like that. Like you've got it set up to where now it's all, the entire voxel description in terms of the data is going to be housed within that IFC file. Is that correct?
That is correct, yes.
Okay, and I don't. Oh, yeah, Stefan, you're maybe gonna.
I mean, you could also reference external data, but if you want it to be within IFC, then the IFC voxel data is the approach. But you could reference external data sets by IREL associates dataset or something like that. But then again, it's on the consumer side if they even look into that file.
So two options exist.
And again, I don't, at the level of my understanding, I don't think this presents a big issue for us. I don't think, but it's just something I want to, be aware of, I guess, in voice, is that like the way that we, the methodology we use to render the voxel data is stored in a net CDF file. So I think for us it would be like, we get the capabilities through the IFC ODA SDK, the ODA IFC SDK to bring in the voxel data description, and then we get it processed on our end to like a net CDF format, and then away we go. I think on our end. So
I think what the most important probably is that on your end, from the software that is consuming the data, it knows the concept, it knows what a voxel is, and whatever the format into which that voxel data is to be consumed is a sort of a second, in my opinion. Yeah, it's a second, it's a lower difficulty. Whereas the first one is, of course, to make sure the concept of voxel is understood in terms of what it can carry.
So
your software does.
Sounds reasonable, Michael. Yeah, if this is the technology you're using internally, kind of, yes, you need to translate that somehow. Yes.
Yep. Okay. Great. Sounds good.
Good, and thanks, Michael. And Artemis, discussion with Jonas was as well around the type of geometries to use to represent the different kind of subsoil configurations, typically.
Yeah, something like that. Plus, GeoSuite is mostly aimed right now to the Scandinavian market. Quadri is more international, and I wanted to discuss with him which is the best way, to categorize some topics that are in GeoSuite in the Scandinavian-oriented market, how we will best fit them to, let's say, Quadri and the delivery for the sprint, that it's more international. So we have everything in place.
Okay. Good. Yeah. So you've made quite an investigation on the how-to, and now you know the how-to, so it's just a matter of coding.
Exactly.
That's good. That's really good.
I have a question. It's not that much technical related. It's about the summit in Norway in September.
Yes.
Me and Jan Erik are reporting to different managers.
Yes.
And our group manager for GeoSuite is right now on holidays.
Okay.
He will be back a little bit later. So what is the deadline to answer for that?
As a matter of fact, I think that Jan-Erik has answered for you on the principle. My email was looking for an answer on its principle. By the way, Michael, likewise, if you on its principle, so that I can save you a slot. And as far as the practicalities, we'll see. But typically we know that you will have these kind of things prepared at the last minute. Maybe probably leaving us like a few days to compile and build up a nice global video. So I'll probably be clarifying this by the end of August when I return from vacation, and then the deadline for the provision of the little video you have produced will then be by surely the end of the week before the summit. So that'd be around the 15th of September, something like that.
Okay, then it's really calm. It's a practicalities, because I know Jan-Erik has answered for both of us.
Yes.
But in terms of more practical stuff, I need to get permission from our group leader.
I'll clarify that again, around the 20th of August when I'll be back.
It's great then. Thank you.
And Michael, likewise, I'm assuming that you're okay with participating.
So many thanks for your patience there. That's one of the. So I had a couple items for today, and that was one of them that I wanted to bring up. Was if we are at the point to where we just have, say, georeferencing, the new concepts for georeferencing in place, but we don't have. And hey, we're working on it, but if we don't have much past that, is that okay? That's
absolutely okay.
Okay.
Everything that we have covered so far that you've started implementing is absolutely okay.
Okay.
And this is not meant to cover the quote disciplines specific only. It's everything we've covered.
Okay. That's great news. Then yes, I think I hope I'm not going to get myself into trouble here, but yes, I think so just to be clear, it's a 3 to 5 minute narrated video, right? Of just our capabilities and okay.
A little bit of positioning, a little bit of strategy software wise, and some evidence that you've been working on that, and that can be whatever screen capture.
Don't forget to praise Michel for his awesome project leadership and stuff like that.
So the texture. We'll just
don't make it too commercial. So don't make it too commercial, but of course people need to understand the global idea is that we see that all of you are covering the entire cycle from the provision of GIS and geotechnical data to its use in the design phases of a project, to its realization, to the recollection. And for example, in the realization, I mean things like what Beaver Control can do and Unknesh can do in terms of machine guidance and recollection of what has been excavated, and then that back into, as you said, into assets management and databases of the kind that your solutions manage. So just express your positioning into that loop and your solutions, and then any evidence you can in the form of screen captures of what you've done on GitHub, what your developers have already attached, and what they have implemented when it comes to georeferencing. A few things like this, just to prove that you've been on board and active indeed since the beginning of the project.
Okay, great. Yeah, then I think we're in good shape. And so, yes, it may be last minute, like September 15th, but
I'm sure this is going to be that way.
That is life. Okay, that's great. That's really exciting. I had a couple of other questions, but I wanted to defer to anybody else for sure. Okay, so as you all know, our team is diving in, which is great, and so a big focus is georeferencing, and we're making good progress. But our one of our product engineers found an item that I wanted to bring up. Is it okay if I share my screen? Is that all right?
Of course.
Okay. All right. Great. I think it's just minor, hopefully. But okay. So I
sure hope it's a paid.
Yeah. So one of the files that we're looking at is this from way back in Sprint 1.2 is this georef A scaled. And what we're seeing is that in the IFC, so number 86 here, IFC map conversion scaled, the entries here, this entry in particular right there, that the $sign. If I go look at the, if I'm looking in the wrong spot, please just yell at me. But if I go look at the documentation, the dev documentation, this is 4.3 add 1 here. I see that there are 8 hidden, I guess I would say, or not hidden, inherited attributes. And then the 9th, 10th, and 11th are for the scale X, Y, and Z. But if I count up here, and maybe I'm just doing something silly, is like, it seems like that would be our 8. And then that would be the X, Y, and Z scale factors. So I just wanted to ask, like, is that right there intentional? Or are we missing something from our end?
That's a mistake on my end.
Okay.
The number 1 before the dollar should either not exist or the $sign should not exist.
Okay, that's a great. Thanks for actually.
I'm gonna fix it right away.
Oh wow! Okay, wow. This is okay. The product engineer is going to be very, very happy. So
yeah, that's. Or
okay.
even better. You yourself are a product engineer. Can you open an issue on this?
I will do that because that's a good. I haven't done it since I was in my previous role, so I want to do it now. That's a good experience. All right, I will open an issue. I will.
So you can, if you want, so you can click on the line number or to the left. The GitHub is really good in this. And then the 3 dots, and you say reference a new issue, and it references exactly this line in that.
That's amazing. That is amazing. Okay, great.
And I'm gonna prepare a pull request that fixes this.
Okay, excellent.
And that you can recode, Michael, and that's another proof of evidence that you've been very active and pointing. Yeah, good.
No, I always get so excited on these calls. I mean, it's mutual benefit very strongly.
Absolutely.
So, okay, that's great. That makes that one a piece of cake. That's no problem. One other item I had is that we are looking down the road, and we are by and large following the IFC tunnel sprints, and for like candidate concepts and things that we want to pursue next. And one that's come up is the IFC borehole, and I just wanted to get some insights on IFC borehole. My understanding is that it would be largely used for recording geotechnical site investigation data. So you might have something like a vertical, so I don't know, you'd have like basically like vertical lines, I don't know, or vertically spatially positioned.
I would say.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but because I'm working with geotechnics, the best way to represent a borehole would be a cylinder. Usually it's vertical, but it could also have some sort of inclination.
Really?
So we are not talking about a line like 2D. The best way would be a cylinder. To represent.
Okay, so thank you so much, Artemis. And so the question I have then that's of interest to us then is IFC borehole not a fitting concept or usage or whatever for incorporating geotechnical site investigation data in terms of like it's spatial positioning, I guess I would say, within these IFC files? Or because if it's a cylinder, like if it's SPT or whatever, like whatever geotechnical test was conducted like at the location through the depth, wouldn't you want to just represent the number of blows at a given XYZ? I mean, that's a point, right? I guess is what I'm getting at. So if IFC borehole isn't a fit, is IFC borehole a fitting location for storing geotechnical site investigation data? If it's not, then I would be curious to know like what is, if that makes sense.
Well, IFC borehole being an IFC geoscience element is exactly the entity where you would do that.
Awesome.
So it's exactly. I mean, we kind of adjusted this a bit because before it was what was it again? it was some other entity based, but now it's geoscience element. So it's really specific to geoscience
investigations. Yes.
Investigations, exactly. So you're completely on the right track if you use that for geoscience investigation data. One remark though, in IFC, geometry and semantics and topology and what else did I have in mind? And groupings and stuff like that. This is completely separate. So geometry is basically a resource, and it cannot exist by itself. It has to be attached to something that has a GUID, and geometry by itself doesn't have a GUID at all. So if we're looking at something like a borehole, which is a geoscience element, it may have geometry, or it's completely void of geometry. If it has geometry, it also requires it to have a position, but that's basically about the restrictions regarding geometry. It's completely dependent on the use case that you're looking at. It can be a point, just a position. It can be a cylinder. It can be a line. Currently, the specification does not restrict this part.
Do you have a feel for if it would get restricted in the future, or you feel like now it is intended to be left open and provide that flexibility?
Well, that's actually a question of an MVD. So in principle, a stakeholder using IFC to exchange in a certain exchange scenario. Let's say you're in preliminary design and you want to exchange between a geoscience engineer and a road designer. That exchange would actually specify what is required.
I see.
On the borehole.
Okay.
That would be the typical approach. But there are certain restrictions also in the IFC specification inherently. If we identify any such restrictions, you are the first people to actually bring us that kind of information. So domain specialists, software vendors are the people who bring that sort of requirements forward. So if you have anything, this is the best time to express such concerns.
Yeah, I mean,
recommendations.
Go ahead, Misha. Sorry.
Yeah, or express recommendations, which from your perspective makes sense.
Right. So my previous role was, I know we're long here. Thank you so much, everyone. My previous role was in university, and it was geotechnical engineering, structural engineering, and so that is one area or two areas. I guess I feel like yes, I can speak to that with stronger opinions. And so for me, I think that it's really important that we have a healthy mechanism for getting geotechnical site investigation data into these IFC files so that we can then pass it through for like geostatistical type operations, right? Where we start to go beyond just, I don't know, I'll get off on a crazy soapbox here, but it's like, my perception is that a lot of times, at least in the US, the practice for geotechnical engineering is you have a project site, you go out to the site, you select locations where you're going to conduct these investigations. And then if it's a bridge, for example, well, if you're designing a pier of the bridge that has piles or shafts, you just say, all right, what are the nearest 4 borings? Okay, let me take the average of those, or what's the nearest boring? And as I think Artemis, with your background, you probably know, like, if you take a boring and you walk 10 feet away, you take another boring, you could very well get a totally different set of measurements,
completely different representation. Doesn't mean that, yeah.
And so accounting for the spatial variability is really important, and I think that that's something that's emerging. I think it's still got a long way to go in the US, but I think that's emerging. And I think that if we have this mechanism, for example, where the IFC boreholes, which it sounds like, Sergey, what you're saying is totally fine, if it's agreed upon as part of the MVD for the project, to use it as basically like a, vertical sets of points, I guess I would say, at each site investigation location, then I think that's a really cool way to then pass that right on into like geostatistical analysis tools that then populate voxels. I think that that's, that is such a cool, valuable workflow that could benefit a lot of people. So it sounds like to me that IFC borehole is currently set up to have that flexibility, but something I need to take back to the team is that it's not just used for site investigation data. Like there's that geometry component, and that geometry component could be, as far as like you're saying, Artemis, is like an actual, a cylinder, and it wouldn't just be vertical; it could be inclined at times, which is interesting to me. So,
and that would apply to anything that is, those investigations made as well before in a tunnel, before drilling further. So they investigate, in a direction, not directly in the direction, but a bit aside like these, and then they create that that compilation of information that allows to take good decisions as to the drilling method.
Yeah.
But what you've described, Michael, is exactly what we aim at addressing, and we hope that what we have prepared, we will be easing and structuring at the same time in a manner that is making sense for the industry. Those exchanges that happen between the source of data, the interpretation that is made out of it, and then the provision of that interpretation to a civil engineering package that doesn't do the interpretation, but that needs a way to localize, to understand what's the potential configuration of the subsoil is, so to optimize the design of the structure the best. Yep. So we hope we have the pieces in place to do this.
Awesome. All right. Thank you so much. Those are the questions I had for today.
And one thing that I didn't mention, but you in that context you have as well the opportunity to link external data, as Stefan was saying, and in that particular case in the form of data in DIGS format, for example, in the US. So that be as well an option. You can refer to external files that describe that kind of data in a DIGS format, or IGS in the US, in the UK, for example.
Yep. Okay.
Maybe one more remark to remember about exchange scenarios. Sorry. And defining exchanges. It's typically on many levels where you can define these. You can go for a global MVD where you can say, okay, if I want to exchange data by reference, so that the data is just referenced, it's not editable, you have certain restrictions. That's currently called the reference view. You can then go to individual countries where you can say, okay, I'm going to take a reference MVD, but I'm going to add my own properties to it, and restrict the exchanges, instead of to software functionality, to my particular process of designing a road, for example. And I'm going to call it, this is my road MVD. It's going to have, maybe 15 roles defined where exchanges take place, and I can then specify which exchange is suited for an IFC exchange. And if I do that, I then can define subsets of the IFC to facilitate those exchanges. And these can be these can be as small as a couple of entities. For example, you probably know Kobe as a standard. Kobe has an MVD in IFC defined. And you will be surprised to know that it's 8 times smaller than the complete IFC specification. It just features 100 entities. It features only a couple of properties. So it's a really small subset. It's really easy to implement. And it just facilitates the Kobe exchange. So, it's a way of dealing with the schema, instead of going for the entire set,
just
specifying your own exchanges, and only those exchanges can then be used in a toolkit. For example, we we actually generate a toolkit specifically for an MVD. So you could get a toolkit instead of 900 entities, you could get a toolkit with 50 entities, you know, and it's easier to implement because you just give it to your developer who is a specialist for this part, and he only has to deal with 50 entities instead of 900. That's in principle how MVDs work, and it can be on local level, on global level. You can even then go all the way down to project level. Stefan has a really nice slide on that in the hardcode introduction, where this is explained how these MVDs can build upon each other. So if you're interested in that slide, then just ask Stefan to send it to you. It's just one slide and it explains a lot.
Let's have a chit chat afterwards.
I will open an issue. I'm kidding.
But you should open the issue, because I already opened the pull request for the mistake you found.
Oh,
so
okay.
I want to link what I'm fixing.
Okay. Sorry, I was making a silly joke. But yeah, I will do that, Stefan.
But I agree on that one. Yeah. But
yeah. I would be interested in that slide, I guess, is what I was trying to say. So.
Of course.
So okay. All right.
We can have a chit chat afterwards.
Okay. And I will open the issue now, like right when we hang up. No problem. So.
Do it over weekend.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and also this is so regarding MVDs. This is something that we are striving to at least get a good grasp in September, when let's say when we wrap up the whole sprints and everything that was done, and the questions that you're giving us back, and shapes basically how we're gonna perhaps propose such things.
Yeah. Great.
Because of course, for example, you as an importer would of course be interested that voxels are always on the same place, because that makes implementation much easier.
Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, I need to take a call, but you didn't need me. Good.
Good to go.
Yeah, no, that was a very interesting discussion. Thank you very much again. Yeah, don't forget to generate your issue, and
yep,
Stefan will close it once merged, one solution is merged. No, thank you for that. Good. Shall we adjourn?
Yep, sounds good.
And free you up.
And one
Michael,
thing,
you have
Michelle,
a good day. Artemis, you have a nice evening. Sorry, Stefan.
Michelle, one thing that you did tell in the
you
morning
too.
that we should perhaps also denote here is next week, Michelle is on vacation. So you're going to be joining us, Sergey and myself, or Lars. But the calls are still taking place.
Okay.
It's just Michelle that has some well-deserved vacation.
Thank you, and I'm sure that would be even more efficient without me. So I'm going off without any, worries or I was about to say regrets, but that's not the term. That's not regrets that I wanted to say.
Michelle, who's gonna do the pull request of the recordings?
That's that you will have to wait until I'm back.
Until you're back, no worries. I'm gonna make issues.
Exactly. I would like to protest here, because I think if Michelle is not here, then we're off leash, and then we usually bite. So just warning beforehand.
Well, usually that's the opposite, Sergey. A dog that is on leash has more of a tendency to bite than a dog that is free, because he's feeling the stress of his master.
Yeah,
and
so
he's more aggressive. When he's free, he acts a better way.
Bad comparison. We're gonna work on the comparison.
So
yeah,
right. So right.
Forget about the master part.
Yeah, but you're so right. Indeed, that's so very true.
No, but it's an excellent teamwork. I have to say, it's such a pleasure.
Okay.
The feeling is reciprocal. So yes, have a nice day, everyone.
Yeah, see you.
You too.
You take care.
And talk to you next week.
You will, dear. Cheers.
Bye bye.
Bye bye, everyone.
Bye. Ciao.
Bye.